Beyond.
Beyond.
Dragons on the Wall.
That's the wrong
No,
show.
no,
That's
it's
not
not.
even-
Oh.
Where am I?
We're off to a bad
Keep
start.
it
everybody.
real.
This
We're
is
not
going
talking about Game
terribly.
of Thrones?
Hey, everybody, welcome to Beyond episode 497 and a half. I don't know.
No,
it's 502.
But yes.
There you
500. It's a special
I missed
holographic
the big
cover.
one.
I'm Max
We all
Scoville.
did.
We all did, actually. It's a long story. I'm Max Scoville. I'm joined today by my good friends Terri Schwartz, in from the LA office.
Hi.
Brian Altano, in from... You're always here.
Hey, ladies.
You pipe down over there. And Jonathan Dornbush.
Charmed, I'm sure.
Yeah, because we got
I'm Gil
Kingdom Hearts
Maison.
news, and we don't know how to talk about
And
that.
then I just showed up. I've been here.
Charmeth and Charmbush.
Yep.
Charmathan Charm...
My Charmander evolution.
it's all...
Beyond.
All right.
Thanks. There it is.
You're welcome.
So yeah, this
You
is
wait for it.
This is a crazy hectic week. If we seem a little bit fritzy, that's because we are all mostly leaving for Comic-Con tomorrow, and we're going to go out and do whatever it is that we do there. Terri, you're handling a stupid amount of that. You do all the interviews and talking and the.
If half of my interviews are not prepared for at Comic-Con, it's because I would rather be here right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I'll just ask them about the topics on
Don't
today's
you-
show.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we'll
Well,
find
How do you
out
feel about Kingdom
from,
Hearts 3? Cast of Game of Thrones.
We've got some pretty huge news today, guys. A lot of really big stuff coming out. For starters, Windjammers is coming to PS4 and Vita on August 29th.
It's good news.
So if you missed that Frisbee game, there it is.
It's back.
Yeah.
The next big esport they're calling it.
Yeah. D23 was this last weekend, and of course we got some Kingdom Hearts news out of that.
I was there.
All right.
I was in that panel.
Yes.
I talked to Tetsuya Nomura
Yes.
and brought Jonathan back the best
The
gift I
greatest
could
gift
ever give
ever.
anyone,
Yes.
All right, well,
especially a
you two
huge
go
Kingdom
at it.
Hearts fan.
I don't know what to say about that series.
Well, I don't know if you know this about Jonathan Dornbush, but he is a huge Kingdom Hearts fan.
Where
Yeah.
did you hear that? IGN.com?
Maybe because I read all your coverage to help prep for this hour-long interview. That was my first translated interview through a translator I've ever done.
It's kind of nice. Half as many questions.
It is half as many questions, but it's weird because usually like eye contact is so important when you're talking to someone, and instead it would be like if I'm interviewing you, but I'm talking through you, I need to like I'm listening to like you talk to that person, being like,
I always think of it like when it's like talking to a couple and one of them's telling a funny story about the other one, and you're like, oh, you did do that. That's
right. But it looks great. The big announcement is that finally, at long last, a Pixar level will be in a Kingdom Hearts game, and it is Toy Story, which I noticed on the notes for this Beyond episode, you said, and I quote,
We don't actually address the notes on the air.
"Oh,
That's
I'm sorry.
bad form.
These
We can do that.
Fine.
these papers in front of us are just for decoration."
I was being a crab apple yesterday morning, and I had some mean things to say about the toys.
You
in this
didn't
level.
you didn't like
Okay,
the toy look.
so-
I think it looks great.
What's
I think it
wrong?
looks awesome.
Okay, no, I'll get into this.
I
I will say,
wanna
as
talk to you about
as
this.
a current gen Toy Story level, it looks fantastic.
Sure.
It looks, I would say, it looks better than the original Toy Story movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where we are with computer generated imagery at this point in time.
Ironically, the you will get Toy Story graphics quote that was thrown around way generations and generations ago is now here and possibly
It's
surpassed.
better than
Easily,
Toy
yeah.
Story graphics. Yeah.
But yeah, I will say that they have these sort of like action figurized versions of the Kingdom Hearts characters who show up, and I have a huge issue with this because they have been making action figures of those characters since the series was introduced, whatever, 15 years ago at this point.
yeah.
And they didn't use anything that looks like that. They don't look like action. They look like weird, like crappy Mega Blocks kind
Well,
of.
how are you gonna buy the new action figures they make based on this if
Exactly.
it looks the same?
I mean, that's the
That's
the
one
obvious
consideration.
answer.
Also, that it takes place. It's not in one of the Toy Story movies. It takes place after Toy Story 2, which would put it, years back. So toy design has come a long way since.
That's
then.
true.
I
He got
think
you there.
it's Actually,
Yeah.
He got you up against the
playable.
ropes on that one.
I don't know. I'm still pretty weird about it. They're like weirdly blocky. It's like, okay, so my comparison here, and I'm sure that a lot of gamers can agree with this, is like when you see a movie and somebody's like holding a controller and they're just like moving the sticks around and like mashing the buttons, and you're like, that's not how anyone plays
That's
games.
how I play games.
As an action figure nerd, I'm like, no. You don't have a head sculpt like that with articulation like that. It doesn't look good.
I didn't realize that that's where you were going to take it. So I think that actually is a very interesting and valid criticism. Though I will say, I don't think like some of these toys don't look like actual. Well, no, I guess that's not true.
it's
Like in the Toy Story movies, they do.
Yeah.
They generally do.
Believable. But
Yeah.
I think it is very playful that like these guys show up and Woody's like, we don't recognize you as one of Andy's toys. And I'm like, oh, that's fun and makes sense. And is playful.
Yeah, there are a couple like fun nods just in that trailer to the Toy Story universe, like whether it's like them looking up at we're going to escape out of the room through the window, or just like sort of going to the toy store, which is I believe a different toy store than the one in Toy Story 2, but it's sort of that same feel. Yeah, like I just love that there was that fan service to that film while creating something original.
So what bums me about this is that it's going to be buried 11 hours into a 70-hour game. And I won't be able to experience it. I'll have to ask one of you to like queue up a save for me, so I can, because I want to play this. I want to see this because I love Toy Story.
Yeah.
But Kingdom Hearts is really obtuse and confusing to me in 2017. I think if I was there from the jump, I'd be like, yeah, bring it on. But I missed all those games.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on. Is Donald's alive?
Donald's still alive.
Okay.
Yeah, he's
Goofy
there.
is
He's
still
in Game
alive.
4. They're both
Can they die in
for
those
now.
games?
We'll find out in 3.
All right.
Yeah, that could be how the game ends.
That would be pretty
Sacrifice
sad.
themselves. Yeah, probably not.
I don't think Disney would allow that.
Probably not.
And this is when Donald Duck dies, children.
But
So as a Kingdom Hearts fan, what's going on? What's the takeaway from this?
Well, so to that point of like, hey, this may be buried in, sort of coming out of both Terry's wonderful Nomura interview and then a lot of the other interviews that he did from the show, he talks a lot about how the world focus for this game is not necessarily the same amount as has been before, but just larger singular worlds. Like they want worlds that are more expansive and more interesting and have more unique gameplay opportunities. Like in this one, at one point, Sora starts piloting a mech toy. And it's like in first person, it looks like Titanfall, basically. Like he can jump in and out of the mech as he pleases.
That he gets from the new toy store.
Yes, yeah, it comes in the new toy store.
That sounds really cool.
And it's very specific to that area of that world. And Nomura had talked about how like there are going to be these points of interest in every world that are sort of very specific and offer different gameplay opportunities. Like they haven't talked about the Big Hero 6 world at all, but I imagine, like I assume you'd get to fly with Baymax at some point.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Like the only promo image they've ever shown is Sora flying with Baymax fighting like an evil Baymax. So there's clearly intent to have every world be very specific and very unique, but there's also, it's not going to be, I think Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 had around 12 or so. I think they're going to have less this time.
Yeah, that seems to check out because we've seen the kind of the growth of from like when the original games came out. There were levels. That was the thing you have, and now we have like here are these huge expansive worlds. You look at something like Rise of the Tomb Raider that has effectively like 2 levels, but they're sprawling across massive areas.
Right.
Yeah.
But also Disney they have their tendrils everywhere, and everyone's like they're gonna have everything. It's gonna be the Jungle Book and a Goofy movie and Star Wars and Spider-Man. It's like maybe it's not.
Well, that's actually an interesting question. In addition to speaking to Tetsuya Nomura, I actually did an interview with one of their lead marketing people for the Disney show, the IGN show on Disney XD, which premiered, which is crazy. There is a TV show.
What did the marketing man say?
The marketing man, I was like, I know this is greedy because people have wanted Pixar forever, and now you have Pixar, but what else? Like, essentially, are you opening the door to there also being like these new Disney IPs, Lucasfilm and Marvel and everything else? He was like, that is greedy, but stay tuned. And I think I would be... I would expect maybe we'll see some of those worlds in some capacity.
When he said stay tuned, was he being clever and meaning like we are going to stay tuned, cartooned, and we're not going to have any live action stuff? I'm sorry, like
they did have live action.
I question
pirates
everything now.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if people only spoke in puns
that
like
might
that?
Be.
Like,
I would. That's how I would do interviews.
I mean, that's some like clicky headlines right there. Did he spell this word when he said it out loud?
I
This
don't know.
way?
That was like 2 days ago, but it feels like 3 weeks ago, so I don't remember.
But I mean, the thing
with
with
that.
So this is the first like major numbered iteration of the game. Obviously, there have been a bunch since Disney made all these acquisitions of Pixar, Lucasfilm, and Marvel. So obviously, that's been the thing is everyone's asking, are they going to use all of these? I think they could also use sort of Star Wars or Marvel in like summon form, where like Sora can, like for a little bit of time, call someone in from like a random universe. That was how they got like Simba into the game before The Lion King had a world. That's how they get sort of side characters in for things. Chicken Little was a summon into. There was no Chicken Little world, but Chicken Little was a summon.
So I don't remember that at all.
Oh yeah.
Canonically is like Simba running around Africa, and all of a sudden he just disappears and shows up, and he's got to fight like the dude from Hercules.
Yes.
Like without knowing, does he get briefed? Is there context?
Sora's like, I need you in Olympus because this white-haired, beautiful dude is fighting me with a giant sword.
Right.
And I need your help. and he just has.
And then he just shows up.
Yeah, he just has to show up.
And he's like, okay.
That's who
I've
I'd
never
sub
seen a
in.
man before, but I'll bite him.
Yeah.
Okay.
That classic symbol line.
I think it's time for you, Jonathan.
Just a regular lion.
Yeah, that's
One day this kingdom will be yours, and then other stuff occasionally, like the bed from the movie Toy Story. Now I have to explain what movies are. I gotta die. Bye.
so you've read the leak script from the new Lion King remake.
Yeah, it's on DeviantArt.
Yeah.
The gods must be crazy. Yeah, so other stuff that came out of D23, we got was this out of D20 the Spider-Man thing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes
they had a
drop stuff
games
arbitrarily.
panel,
right?
Where the
Level
Kingdom
up.
Hearts 3.
So
yes.
we got a real just a real terrible Spider-Man dev diary where there's not really a lot to take away from that.
So I want to give you some context for this because I was in the games panel and they had two other big panels at D23. They had a live action movies panel and they had an animation panel. And for a lot of these properties that they were showing off, because like Disney is like, here's everything we have that we want to market and you guys are the ultimate Disney fans. They did a lot of dev diaries. They released one for The Last Jedi that wasn't really anything new but is exciting because like anytime but anytime okay.
There was a lot of new stuff.
There was a lot of new
got to see the
Easter
porgs.
eggy things
They're
that
animatronic.
you can find in that, and also seeing those actors interact in a behind-the-scenes setting is also like very charming and wonderful. They also released one for Toy Story 4, where basically the director like gave everyone a tour around Pixar Studio and what they were working on. It was very playful as well. So this was sort of a trend of D23, but you have criticism with dev diaries for video games versus an animated movie versus a live-action movie.
So I think that using behind-the-scenes stuff as a promotional tool is sort of somewhere between lazy and disingenuous.
It's just cheating a little when you don't have too much.
It's like telling somebody the idea of an idea for a thing versus actually showing them the thing. And sometimes, in the case of, I think, maybe I'm biased here, but in the case of the Star Wars behind the scenes thing, it's actually behind the scenes stuff, and there's new animals and characters and costumes and planets we've never seen before, and it's probably a little bit easier for them to be like, hey, we filmed this while it was.
You also have to contextualize where you're getting that. You're getting it a few months after a Last Jedi trailer, a few months before the movie is out specifically, a few weeks from like the Captain Phasma sequel, prequel comic. Like this story gets filled out. So I remember with Mass Effect Andromeda, for example, they're like, we don't have a game yet, but here's a guy looking at some space wallpapers, and that sucks, right? Because that's like, I mean, when I went to art school, kids would be like, I don't have a painting, but I'll tell you what I'm working on, and you'd be like, dude, this is portfolio class. Like, you put it on the wall, and then you walk out, and we judge it. You don't just go, I can't judge what I can't see. Spider-Man, we got like a pretty awesome few-minute trailer thing at the Sony press conference less than a month ago. Right. So I think that bought them enough sort of free time to go like, here are the people working on the game, here's our vision for it. Had we not seen that, then sure, I'd be totally with you. That said, we still don't have like a definitive release date. We don't know. There's still a lot up in the air with this thing.
Right.
So.
I think there's also something to be said with D23 being what it is, and E3 being very targeted to the gaming audience for these companies, whereas D23 is, even though it is in a gaming panel, is part of a larger sort of mass audience of Disney.
Right.
And I think this may be some people's first exposure to that. And so if it's someone who loves Spider-Man but may not be playing games a ton, that gives them a little more context to that game than here's the 7-minute demo from E3.
Yeah.
Because they're obviously not going to do here's a new location a month after that one. They wouldn't sort of spoil
Yeah,
that
making
with
a
them.
demo is something that takes like 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
Like, that's just breaking out that one piece, scripting it perfectly, having someone do a perfect playthrough of it. I mean, you can't really knock 2 of those out in a month.
And I think that additionally, like, think about what they released for Kingdom Hearts 3 at D23. Pixar announcement, like it's like totally feeding into that audience, and there is additional context to these releases that we broke out within the setting of D23, where they followed with like a Q&A panel where they brought people on stage.
That's fair. I guess what I'm getting at here, and EA is especially guilty of this, is that they maybe either they don't want to show a thing yet, or they don't have a thing to show. But having people sitting at their desk and talking about what they're working on, it's not super exciting, and at times they'll bury the lead and they'll have something new to reveal, but I don't know if they don't want to take the time to polish it, or if there's an appeal of this sort of like, oh, you're seeing the people behind it. And I know that obviously developers don't really get a lot of face time when it comes to promoting their games, and it's like to give them a chance to actually talk about their game is cool. I just wish we got that after the game too, you know, like to learn about how a game was made after the fact is so much more interesting than these sort of like puff pieces ahead of time where someone's
That's
like,
our job.
I'm so excited about Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But of course they're not going to give us, you know, FaceTime with that outside of embargoes.
And I mean, to your point about that with EA, that was the thing. I believe it was last year where they were like, here are the Star Wars games we have coming up for the next 4 years, but it was, and Respawn's doing a thing. And, you know, there are these Star Wars games, but they can at most show you a piece of concept art. And the same job could almost be accomplished by a press release instead of a video.
I agree with that.
There's the production to them I see of putting on sort of a spectacle with the video.
Well,
I see why.
Like between the way PR and development studios clash, or at least work in a weird vacuum, is that we don't ever really get that opportunity until sometimes years later. Because you'll talk to a dev in the road in, and they're like, it's all about ambition and scoping and like the hopes and dreams and like their adoration for the character and what they really want to do with the franchise and how they grew up playing Spider-Man, blah, 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 blah. Then the game launches and there's like 3 months of like PR and we're very excited about the launch and, you know, here's our roadmap looking forward. And then maybe 2 years later, they're like, Venom's tongue was really hard to make, so we didn't put him in the game. It sucks because I love him and his tongue, but it's impossible to animate. And the guy quit who was going to do it, and I'm really pissed about it still. And you're like, oh my God, where was this going in? Like EGM used to do this thing, I think it was them, where they would basically do like postmorts on games with devs after the game had shipped already, the sales had already been hit, like all of that big event was over. And there wasn't, you know, this is back in the day where every game wasn't this living, breathing entity that went on for 4 years. It wasn't this Destiny-verse, you know, games as a living environment ecosystem.
As a service.
That whole thing. So it would be like the game shipped, it would get its initial sales in its first 3 to 6 months through the holiday season and beyond. And then all of a sudden, there we go. Dragons of the Wall. And then like things would open up a little bit and people would start getting moved on to other projects. And you have a guy being like, hey, I'm ready to talk about this. Like Ken Levine did an interview with Glixel a couple months back where he was talking about how he was incredibly depressed making BioShock Infinite. And like we had Ken in the studio leading up to that game, a week before it launched. He spoiled the ending to that game standing next to me, and I turned around and he yelled at him, and I was like, hey, spoilers, Ken, I didn't make that game with you. But he didn't come in and go like, yeah, we're really excited about this game. I'm incredibly depressed. Like it doesn't happen, right? So there is that sweet spot for it, and we haven't really landed on where to find it. And I think that is more on us.
When I say these dev diaries are disingenuous, is the fact that they're not going to give you any insight to how the game's being made because the game is being made. Whereas if you, I think, had like a third party kind of external crew go in and document, I think that God, what are they called? I'm friends with the guys, Ryan O'Donnell, those guys. They did a behind the scenes making of for The Last of Us. And it's like a proper, like, here's showing things being made. And, you know, there was a point in time where making a game was a thing that was done on a computer. Like, that was it. But now you watch the dev diary for Battlefront 2, and you've got, you know, Janina jumping around in a mocap suit, and you meet these other actors, and there are actors who are physically in the game. But, like, I'd love to see something that focused on, hey, here's how you take physical people and a bunch of, like, high school gym mats and ping pong balls, and you turn them into a video game cutscene or, you know, QuickTime event.
I agree. That's interesting.
I agree that it's interesting, but I think what you're missing a little bit in it is that it's not totally like, here's how we teach consumers about how we made the game. It's we are the marketing team and want to market that, like, and that's the failing. Like it's a dev diary in the form of, we don't have another trailer to show you, so here's another excuse for a hype piece. And I think that the reason why it feels a little disingenuous is because it's like, here's how cool and excited you should be for everything. We get these with making of featurettes for movies all the time, where it's like, here's how awesome Charlize is, like, training for stunts for Tom.
You're also seeing a physical thing. Whereas if you see somebody sitting at a desk being like, man, I got all kinds of cool stuff on the computer behind me, but let me tell you how cool it is to work on Spider-Man. That's what I'm getting at, though. Is like, there is a way to do behind the scenes stuff and have it be interesting. And you're like, oh, here's where they're trying something new. But to be like, I sure am excited to be working on a game. It's like, well, I'm excited to play your game. The thing that draws me to it is the fantasy realm escapism that you are creating from the ground up. And you're in an office.
I think one of the major issues here is that gamers are incredibly unforgiving with seeing stuff that doesn't actually make it into the final game. Whereas like how many movie trailers have you look at Rogue One.
Oh yeah.
Like look at the trailers for Rogue One, there's
don't exist.
80% of the shots in those trailers aren't in the movie.
Squad was the same
and it was the
way.
#1 movie of the year, right? And it won IGN's movie of the year, and we all walked out of it being like, Rogue One was great. And a couple of us were like, yeah, but what about that scene where she's on the plank and the TIE fighter comes up? Don't worry about it. What a good time. They had to send that email to that fish and he's in the chair and it spins. It's great. But gamers are like Peter Molyneux comes out and he's like, you'll be able to plant a tree in my game and it become like a forest. And people are like, oh, really? I can't do that. I'm going to kill you.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But also to that point, I think and you were speaking sort of about how games have this huge like long tail now.
Yeah.
I think developers are reticent to say things because it might go in the game then. Like because they're still working on these games now for years with post-release content or working into the sequels that are kind of building off the originals so much more than they were.
Yeah.
I feel like, hey, I don't want to tell you that Venom's tongue didn't work because we might put him in Spider-Man 2. We might be working on him for that.
So I would be so fascinated. Maybe this is something we can spearhead. We're workshopping here, but I'd be fascinated in a video series that focuses on what developers couldn't get into their games.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that just missed it, right? And I mean, you look at No Man's Sky, they overpromised and underdelivered was the running theme. Even if you did like that game in the end, and I did like a lot of it, people took those guys to war because there was so much they said you could do that wasn't actually feasible or capable. And even if they patch it in years later, it feels too late. So yeah, it's really weird because we demand so much information constantly. And then when we get it, it's either too much because it's not what we actually get in the end, or they underdeliver and we don't get exactly what we want. So I think through all promotional mediums and the fact that now we have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, there's a billion different ways to tell that story as you go in, and there's leaks. We have not found the perfect sweet spot about how to market something correctly, keep investors happy, keep fans happy, and not let anyone down.
Right.
So yeah, I'm glad that's not my problem to solve. That sounds hard as hell.
All right, so in other exciting news this week, this just happened, was this morning, I think?
Yeah.
Aaron Flynn is leaving Bioware after 17 years. General manager worked on, Marty wrote this in here. He didn't finish the sentence. Meanwhile, Casey Hudson is coming back as general manager, who was the director of KOTOR, Mass Effect, the trilogy, and began production on Anthem before leaving for Microsoft. So I guess he's coming back to work on Anthem?
He was there for a very, very long time. And he left 2 or 3 years ago?
2014, and then he announced that he was working with Microsoft in 2015, primarily on HoloLens, and he spoke a bit about that in his sort of blog post on Bioware, that like, hey, I've had all these new experiences and learned a ton by working with different technology, but I realized sort of my home is here.
Yeah.
And especially I think with obviously having that connection for him with Anthem, and now that that's sort of what the studio's focusing on, I can see him wanting to come back for sure.
I think this is a huge booster shot for Bioware fans.
Absolutely.
They've had some kind of a slump after Andromeda, especially. In the end of Mass Effect 3, they're kind of cursed in a lot of ways. And, hardcore fans who get mad at them and send them hate cupcakes. That was a thing. But yeah, Anthem is like a kind of a fresh start. And if Casey Hudson was working on this, like that could be really cool.
Yeah,
Anthem looked awesome.
Yeah, I'm really into this game.
Oh yeah.
And I love that, again, in the notes that I can't address, there's like, does this mean that BioWare will make more Star Wars games? Like that he's
You can address that, yeah. I think everyone obviously wants that. I think the announcement of Anthem was like, it's cool, but everyone's also like, oh, it's kind of like Titanfall Destiny. And everyone's like, where's KOTOR? Where's a BioWare Star Wars game? Like,
we were just talking about overpromising, and to me, like my favorite shot in the Anthem trailer is when you're up and you're jumping down, and there's that seamless shot into the water, and like how gorgeous that was. Yeah. And as someone who's played like not as many hours as many in Destiny, but still more than like I usually put into a game. There are so many points where you're running through those environments and you lose the luster of it because this is just, okay, I've run through this Venus Patrol so many times that now I'm just running to these things. And like that Anthem trailer was so stunningly beautiful that my first thought was, well, how many playthroughs is it going to take before I'm just like, oh, okay, here's where I'm going here to there. Like you lose that magic.
I mean, also what's interesting is that obviously you look at the games that Casey Hudson's like famous for. These are single player experiences that are entirely story heavy, and they're all about like player choice and interaction with with a world that's alive but not full of other people and their avatars. And we're looking at Anthem, and it's like a you know, it's a kind of MMO type game. So like, where does story fall with that? Obviously, Destiny has a story, but in terms of like, are you going to be?
So you can do that. Yeah. This is an opinion-based podcast. You can laugh at Destiny's
that wizard
story.
came from the moon. It's okay. But yeah, like I don't. Is this going to be moving away from kind of BioWare's like bread and butter of like story games, or is this, you know, what happens? I don't know.
I mean, I'd be shocked if it didn't have a heavy story element in it. I think also, though, the greatest thing about these sorts of games where it is that MMO, but still you have your focus, like your single-player focus, the stories you create by playing, whether it's on your own or just with other people, running into friends or random encounters. I think someone with that much history of creating stories that have those many variables, even if it was single player, probably has a pretty good intuition about how to build into that.
Sure.
And obviously we've seen, you know, Bungie's take on that. I would love to see what BioWare's take specifically with Casey Hudson looks like in that field.
Yeah, I think that could be really cool because obviously, like, I mean, I played Destiny at the beginning, and the fact that it was so kind of devoid of story was one of the things that turned me off.
Well, I think the thing that I'm interested, I mean, the Destiny 2 beta is starting. We have Comic-Con.
Yeah.
At some point, eventually, I'm going to get in on it. And I think that they probably learned a lot of lessons there. And I'm interested to see how BioWare like learns from sort of the story issues or not within Destiny, because there were things like the Grimoire cards. Like, you could follow the story down as far as you want, but the simple mission-based elements of Destiny meant that, like, I just ignored all the dialogue and I was like, okay, following objectives, killing these guys, like killing this boss, doing this over and over and over again, that you totally like lose and don't need that. And then you could tell that Destiny was another game that, like Rogue One, sort of was patched together, and there were these concepts that they didn't end up using but still ended up in the game, and so they don't really make sense. And I think that the later expansions like definitely did a better job of having interesting, compelling stories.
They fixed it in post.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I think like it's funny. I love Kirk Hamilton's coverage of Destiny at Kotaku, because he'll find like these like 3 Grimoire cards that are connected and tell this like crazy story about this gun. And like I think that's super clever and Easter eggy. Yeah. But I hope that Anthem and like Destiny 2 and more games that follow this model do a better job of having that a bit more in your face, instead of just you can find it if you care enough to look.
I think the Horizon had a good balance of that too.
Yeah.
The Bazooka Joe universe is massive and full of wonderful characters, but you have to chew a lot of bubblegum to really unlock all those.
You could throw it out.
But you're wasting all that gum.
The animals eat it out of the garbage.
It's not my favorite gum.
Helps their teeth.
Just get kicked out of, I want to get kicked out of an animal sanctuary for giving all the deer gum.
I actually don't know a lot about the way garbage animals grow their teeth.
Oh my God, now I'm just thinking about Okja.
Lord. Yeah, so there's a bunch of release dates floating around. GT Sport is coming out October 17th. This is the first non-numbered Gran Turismo entry. Like, I've never cared for that series.
I don't remember one.
Yeah, this is the first one coming to PS4, I believe.
Yeah,
they were like, they put out like a 0.5 version on PS3, and they're always gorgeous, and they do a lot of good jobs with the cars. I don't know much about the cars, but this has PSVR support, which is like kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Getting in a very nice car in PSVR and driving it around sounds interesting, but
sounds like I'm gonna get motion sickness. Is what it sounds like.
It definitely happens. Like I got a little ill playing some stuff in Drive Club. You had to basically move. Like you had to go into the settings and really make that comfortable. It was also a very low res game at launch, which I think like was a little better with pro support, and I think they patched later on too. But that's a distractingly bad thing, is like low res VR isn't looking great. But these guys have sort of a pedigree of making good looking stuff. So I imagine that won't be the issue.
Yeah, GT Sport looks gorgeous. Yeah. Like I'm not a big Gran Turismo fan. I just never got into the series, but I want to play this game just to watch it. Like it looks so pretty.
I mean, they've always been like, hey, we made the most realistic car. It was always, what is it, the most realistic driving simulator out there or something. And then of course it's a simulation, so it's like that means it's not fun. It's serious. Like,
well, I did an interview with the guys working on the new Need for Speed game at E3, and the major sort of core difference between their game and GT is that you can just completely destroy the cars in Need for Speed, and that's kind of fun. And at working with a lot of big brands, a lot of big car manufacturers are like, please do not hurt our $200,000 car. And you're like, it's fake, and I want to crash into a tree because it's cool.
Yeah,
you know, like I want to get in a high speed truck.
I crashed into a tree because I am bad at racing games.
I don't watch the Fast and Furious movie to see them take care of the car nicely.
Yeah, exactly.
They do crazy stunts. That's why.
So you want to see car damage and stuff like that. But I mean, there are like two types of people. There are the people who are like us at this table who've never played a single one of those games, and there are the people who are like, like, I built a cockpit at home. There's a car in my living room.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they're sort of trying to go after like the Forza crowd because there is an arcade mode in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's a crash into everything you want mode, but I think they I hope they've added, like damage physics. So if you like hit the car, I remember playing like a demo disc on like PS1 of one of the GT games and just being like, I'm gonna get this car going real fast and I'm gonna just drive into something and it would just be like, bonk. I was like, what the hell is that? In completely different release dates, Nidhogg 2 is coming out August 15th. Do you guys know Nidhogg at all?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Love this game.
I was thinking about this. I think the first Nidhogg might be one of my favorite games of the last decade. I love that game. That is like it's just incredibly weird. Have you seen this?
No,
at all?
I haven't.
It's like if you had I would say like I don't know, modern frame rate and controls for an Atari fencing game.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly gory, but there are like 4 colors.
Yeah.
But it's just this.
It's like violently bloody 8-bit jousting and fencing.
Yeah.
And you basically just drop 2 controllers at a party, and 2 people will pick it up, and they just start stabbing each other to death over these landscapes, and monsters will come out and kill them every now and then it ends. And you're like, oh, great. It's basically got the philosophy of like a very old school arcade game, but looks great on your big screen TV.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, so games is like a fairly young medium compared to something like film and TV.
Sure.
Right?
Really?
And so
no, they were the first, I think.
they were the first. No, I just think it's so interesting, especially like with indie games, like having more and more places to be released, more and more people can make these, like the continued trend of just like a remix on classic arcade titles and things that we have nostalgia for. It's very much clear that nostalgia is like running Hollywood and running the games industry. And I just started playing Stardew Valley for the first time because apparently I just missed that it was available like if in the PlayStation store, and I'm like, yes, okay, finally.
That's where I
beat
first played it too.
Yeah, and I don't know. I love that trend, and I think it's fun because you see all these remixes of people taking things they loved when they were younger and started getting into games and giving it a new twist, and it's great.
Well, with Nidhogg, I think at a glance it can look like, oh, it's a retro game thing, but the way it came to be, I believe the guy who made it, or one of the creators, it was I think a psychology, I might be totally wrong here, but this game was originally put on this thing called the Winatron, which was an open source arcade cabinet only for indie games. And they had to be, the Winatron was originally in Winnipeg, and then they kind of like, it was basically an arcade cabinet with like kind of a main box inside of it, but people would put their indie games on there, and they had to be games that could be played in public. Like they had to be in a public place, like in a bar or at some place where there's parties. We had one at Rev3 Games, my old outlet, that Anthony Carboni put together, and he brought it to like the Wild Rumpus at GDC, and people would be gathered around this hideous cabinet and playing these weird games that nobody had heard of. And so it was this wonderful kind of like alternate timeline, in the same way that Hotline Miami is like, here's what a Super Nintendo game would look like if 3D graphics had never happened. And so Nidhogg would be on that, and for the longest time I was like, how do I play this game? And you couldn't have it. Like it had to be on one of these arcade cabinets, and eventually it came to Steam and then came to PS4, and then I would play it all the time at parties at my house. And I love the kind of the simplicity of it, and it manages to be gruesome without having, it has like 4 colors, which is really weird. The new version is like a complete departure from the original.
The art style is totally
hideous. It looks.
I way prefer the original.
I do too, but the new one's kind of growing on me.
Oh, it totally grew on me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen enough or like played it at all.
It looks like if you made like a Super Nintendo game based on like really cutesy claymation, like a Treasure Trolls kind of vibe, but then there's guts. Like they've added like more. They used to be just swords, and now they've got like bows and arrows.
It actually looks like when you see, and we have one of these hanging in the office, but it looks like when somebody does like a very realistic and gritty painting of like Super Mario World, and like Mario and the Peach are like, they both have like weird facial hair.
Every BuzzFeed list.
Yeah, and like Yoshi's like this disgusting actual T-Rex. It looks like someone did that kind of art of the first game, and the art director of this game was just like, you're hired.
Yeah.
We'll make that the game now.
It just looks like a perversion of like a European t-shirt from the 70s.
Yeah.
Like an old Olympics mascot that's been left in a cave too long and now it just kills.
I really like it. It's weird.
I'll play that.
And it's got like character customization, so you can have like weird, funny hair, and you're all these they all look like Mr. Bogus, that old like claymation cartoon mascot thing. So
I think it's like the original game is pretty much perfect in what it set out to do. And if you don't like the art in the new one, just go play that.
Yeah, it's still
there. If you want, give this one a chance. It's one of my favorite sort of couch co-op versus games in the last few years.
It came out right around that era where there were like a dozen great one of those.
Yes.
Around the time of Towerfall.
Yeah.
Also in a few others.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how it takes over The Office like the first one did. We just had people crowding around screaming. We had to actually tell people to stop.
You're gonna update your Overcooked stations with Nidhogg 2
I
stations.
love that game.
Overcooked, so fun.
Yeah. Nidhogg, so if you've never played it, go get that because it's the best.
You telling me or are you telling everyone?
Everybody? You got to get
Right.
get that
You're
get
like,
that
get
Nidhogg.
it. Leave our show right now.
get it.
Don't get it.
Don't
right
do
now.
Comic-Con. Just go play
It's like
it.
$9. It's great. So anyway, I hopped over to our wonderful Facebook group, which is facebook.com/group/podcastbeyond. If you want to be a friend,
Do it.
Make the
Groups.com.
Friends.groups.
#1 group website.
Group/net.com. Jared Proctor said, any new information about the Avengers game? Anything?
No,
D23?
nothing.
No.
You guys,
We
you
hoped,
prepped
but-
well.
Yeah,
for D23, but
You never know if there was going to be anything. But yeah, and when that original announcement was made with Square, they kind of implied that there might be multiple projects. So we don't actually know what the Avengers game will end up being. But yeah, no new information.
That's a ways out, but we did get this thing called Marvel Powers United, which is an Oculus VR game that so far no news of it coming to anything else. It probably is an Oculus exclusive. It is a co-op VR game where you play as Marvel characters.
I played it.
Really? Okay, talk about it. Yeah.
Who did you play
was
as?
Hulk.
Okay.
And it was so much fun.
Really?
It was so much fun. So, okay. So I don't own any VR systems, and I really haven't played much VR because I'd much rather just like buy a nice meal for myself or a good cocktail than like buy an expensive VR system.
Yeah.
$400 meals are you eating?
Sorry. Well, all of them. I live in Los Angeles. It's
I'll
like,
take
oh,
your
you want
7,000-year-old scotch, please.
No, it's like, you want a taco? Here you go. Here's like the most craft There was a place in my neighborhood that was called the Urban Taco Fabricator. So this is what Los Angeles is.
My favorite
I'll
band.
have a mint julep with a Tiffany bracelet hanging off.
Listened on the top.
I often
Everything
face
is
that
full
dilemma
place.
of mortgage versus margarita.
There, yeah.
Margarita always
So
wins.
I have not played much VR for
Yeah.
context, but playing this on Oculus, I played as the Hulk, and it was just like so much fun. There were many different moves you could do, but all I did was Hulk smash things because my long range attack, you like hold down every button and you just like hit the ground.
So is this first person? Are
So
you
yeah,
like
okay, so
in?
put
You
some
are
context.
the- yeah.
So there
Are
is-
you the Ruffalo?
I am the, but they aren't.
That's
quite,
her secret.
They aren't quite the designs. It's not like MCU. It is Marvel characters, and I think they've announced that there are going to be more characters. So I don't think that they're all just going to be MCU ones, but the ones that we could play as were the Hulk, Captain Marvel, and Rocket Raccoon. And I was like, obviously, I want to be Hulk. Sorry, Captain Marvel. I know you're
Right.
a lady. And so you start off, and you're in this like space station. And again, they said there would be a story explaining why you're here, what you're doing, and I got to. You like have lockjaw and he teleports you down and you but there's like this scale element to it where I was like petting Rocket's head.
That's how a lot of
we're
people
in
get
levels.
lockjaw.
Yeah, or like or yeah, I don't know. It's just really funny
So a
encountering.
little rabies joke for you guys.
No,
Try to fit one or two in a day, and that's my quota.
but it was funny because like Rocket, when you're playing as Rocket, like Hulk is huge.
Right, I was gonna ask
Yeah.
you about that.
And I'm looking down. I was like, you guys are so small.
I was reading a
I'm just
preview
really
of that.
big.
Someone who played as Rocket, they were like, "Yeah, I was small and looking up at my friend who was the Hulk."
They have one of
That's
the
so
most
funny.
one of the most wonderfully fake trailers for this. Like they always do that thing where they're like, here's like the old Switch commercials where it's like, oh, Karen's bringing her Switch to the rooftop party, and you're like, no adult woman would ever do that, and here we are. But this is like a lady's like she's like finishing painting this like cool mural, and then she puts on her headset, and this guy comes home from a business trip and takes off his bags, he puts on his headset. I'm like, who are you, like weird house models? And like nobody's. Come on, it's
Well, that's
VR,
like the
you know?
original Wii.
The Wii
trailers
commercials,
were
yeah.
always just like the guy playing Red Steel, and he like swings the sword, and suddenly he becomes like a samurai with guns, and,
And
it
like
feels-
his perfect white family's jumping over the couch. It's like, whoa, we're all ninjas.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it feels a lot like that. But when the guy puts on the mask and becomes Rocket, then it like shrinks down, and that's really interesting to me. Like the
Yeah.
scale. So you were
Think about
crazy
like
the game shrinks you in real
breadth
life.
of characters
I know.
in the Marvel universe and
Yeah.
how they can really play around.
So what I love about that is like having played PSVR stuff in multiplayer settings with stuff like, The Werewolf Within or, Star Trek, when there are people that in real life and they're playing somebody else in the game, but they're moving and they're talking with their voices, there's something incredibly brain breaking and hilarious about that. Like playing like Werewolf Within with someone like Alana, who is a woman who was just like this like weird like 65-year-old like evil looking sort of like Arabian man, and she's like, oh hi Brian, and I'm like, oh who's that guy? Or like playing with like Max and John, and one of them was like a woman, like a female Vulcan in Star Trek.
Oh, man.
It just totally breaks you. So I think the idea of like me being a tiny Rocket Raccoon or Max being a very short raccoon, and then me being like this giant Hulk Hulk or seeing you
But it's
70
like
feet
role
tall.
playing as much as
I
anything,
know, I love
right?
it.
Yeah.
I really hope this comes to PSVR.
It's the entire goof behind the new Jumanji movie, where it's like you're yourself, but you're in a body of somebody else, and it's just, it's
I
odd
wonder if it
of
will,
that.
because isn't it developed like specifically with Oculus?
Yeah. It's actually it's Sanzaru Games who did the last Sly Cooper game. Yeah,
they did the last Sly.
Yeah, I mean, never say never with that stuff because I like.
You guys know better than I do.
Well, yeah, like Super Hot's one of those games that was synonymous with other platforms for a long time, and now it's coming to PSVR.
Could be a timed exclusive too.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, that sounds interesting. So when you were playing, were you sitting down or were you standing up? Okay, and it's. I guess I'm curious how this plays out with. Were you in like a room near other people, or was it
so
different
they
stations?
had stations, but I don't know like how that transitions to your bedroom and like can you play with, I think you can play like by yourself, but you can also play with multiple people. How many people can you bring in? But
well, that's it. That's the weird thing about this, and just like the games I just mentioned, is like they are fantastic in theory at events. If there was like VR arcades, it'd be great there too. But the idea of like getting home and coordinating 4 people in, let alone the same house, but in multiple different places to all line up their VR headsets at the same time and play a game, it's just hard to do, especially with the fact that, Sony still over a year in has made, or close to a year in, has made it sort of difficult to A, buy one, and B, really sell people on why they need a PSVR. So I think multiplayer stuff in VR is brilliant and it works really well if you get it right, but it's just so hard to coordinate right now. And I hope it's something that just gets easier.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, Nick Hedrick says, if Sony was to release updated Move controllers for the VR, would that be something interesting for you, or would you feel jaded by the late edition?
I'd feel jaded.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think it's something that has to go, it has to work synonymously with the sort of revision PSVR 2 or whatever that is down the line.
Yeah,
I think like a full-on hardware revision across the board with everything.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get one without the other at this point.
I mean, the fact that we were using controllers from like 2012 to 2013 right out the gate with PSVR, I think was already just a bad move. It defeated the entire sort of crux of what this thing was, which was a brand new way to play games.
people like the gun, right?
Yeah, no, the gun's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool.
What do you do with it?
My very technical.
There's like 4 games.
People like
Yeah.
the gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the working
Farpoint,
title
right?
for
Yeah.
America.
Yeah.
No, it's a good point. We were talking about this. There was was it Amazon Prime Day where they're like, the cheap things are slightly cheaper, and you're like, oh, okay. And I think PSVR, there was a bundle on sale, and it was like, did it include the camera? There was something about that. We did that thing where we're like, oh, that's right. You still have to buy the camera separately. It straight up does not work if you do not have the camera. Like it needs that to function, and that doesn't come in the box for some very stupid reason. Meanwhile, Oculus is cutting the price of the VR with the Move controllers left and right. So like, I don't know. I don't know where VR is right now.
I think we'll see a price drop for PSVR by the end of the year. I've been saying that for a while, but it's got to happen this year.
Malin Hayes says, what do you hope from the Planet of the Apes game? I completely forgot about this. This got announced at New York Comic Con
by Andy Serkis, right?
Yeah.
I remember this.
It was such a weird thing. He said back in 2016, we're working on something. It's the Imaginarium, which is his sort of studio. And he was like, we're working on it. It's a companion to the movie. It's not based on it's not adapting the movie. But that was all they would say about it. And then it has been absolute radio silence since.
Yeah, nothing.
And we actually, because the movie came out, we're checking into it. We haven't learned of anything yet, but we're trying to find out if this at all exists. My assumption is, because he had said it's not a first-person shooter, so my assumption was it was some kind of VR experience in the way that a lot of studios have been doing. There was the Dunkirk VR thing, there was Spider-Man Homecoming VR. That seems like the most logical thing, but they were saying it was coming to PC and consoles.
If I can ride a horse and look down and see some hairy monkey arms holding a gun, I'm all in.
That's all you
fine.
need?
That's all I need. Just do that. Just have me
I also
trot
wonder
across
if
the land.
He just needed to wait until because this latest War for the Planet of the Apes is sort of the end of a trilogy that is like the Caesar story, and I'm sure that Andy Serkis will remain involved because he has just been so important in the development of motion capture, but maybe he just needed to be done with that project and with that project to really get his studio.
I think there's still room for a game like this to come out if it isn't directly tied to the movie. I mean, when people are like, what's your favorite video game or movie video game of all time? Most people say GoldenEye, and people forget that game came out 2 or 3 years after the movie did.
Yeah.
So I could wait a few years, but also, like, again, don't tell me about it.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm always totally happy. I never want games even slightly tangentially related to a movie to be tied to the movie release.
No, we're past that point.
Yeah, it never benefits the game.
There's too many moving parts.
Yeah,
now.
like if they had tried to make the Insomniac Spider-Man game come out this year, wouldn't have worked. Like,
And they are
no.
very adamant that like it is not related to the MCU
Yes,
Spider-Man at all.
yeah,
Like,
you
and
gotta
that's
get-
fine with
Yeah.
me.
Was
But
it-
just Spider-Man becomes more in vogue.
Arkham
like,
Asylum
helps everyone.
came out right around the time of Dark Knight. Like,
Yeah.
we're kind of like writing that, but it was it's Batman. It's dark, but it's nowhere near the same universe.
Well, and there were all those reports of a canceled Dark Knight game around
but
that
it
time
got
too.
that weird. It got that Gameloft like mobile game. Too.
Yeah, I
Game
think
Dark
that
Knight
ended up
Rises.
happening. But I remember there was going to be sort of like a console game, I think was the reports, which got canned, especially after Arkham came out and everyone
I mean,
saw how
I think
well that
aside
worked.
from kids stuff like Cars or whatever, I think we're kind of done seeing like licensed movie tie-in games. Which
If
is,
you do, it's on mobile.
yeah,
or
exactly.
it's just Kingdom Hearts.
Yes.
Yeah,
yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
Similar but different.
Yeah, or Lego Dimensions or whatever.
Yeah.
Which I'm kind of cool with. I like that sort of modular approach.
Can
Yeah,
I
the
also ask, has anyone else seen War for the Planet of the Apes?
No,
No,
but I
none
really
of
want
you?
to.
I really
Don't
watched-
do it.
I'm
It's so good.
I had to go
It's
see The
so-
Big Sick again.
So not only are those some of my favorite movies of like the last 10 years, but
Yeah.
they were some of my favorite movies of all time. Like when I was a kid, I was super into Planet of the
I've
Apes.
only seen the first, like the original Planet of the Apes.
The
that hasn't
2001
won.
movies.
Yes. No, actually, because that one was coming out, and my mom was like, you have to watch the Heston one.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I did. But weirdly enough, like some people have the Simpsons, like Planet of the Apes thing is their big thing.
Yeah.
Mine is Spaceballs. Whenever I think of
Sure,
Planet
yeah.
of the Apes, I just think of, whoop, there goes the planet.
Well,
Like,
I think it's one of those movies that like you've seen scene by scene through pop culture, and some people have never seen the original but feel like they have. You know, I was like that with The Godfather a while. I know I'm letting down a lot of Italians in my family, but where I just saw that movie through watching other movies and parodies and and satire, and then when I finally watched the movie, I was like, oh, this is a totally different thing. But all of the serious moments in this movie are lost on me because they are jokes and other things.
Right.
Like the big reveal at the end of Planet of the Apes that everyone's known about for decades now has been mocked up and down across everything.
yeah.
Well, I think
It's
what's
a musical,
so interesting
like,
Yeah.
about these Apes movies, like Dawn and
Rise.
no, specifically Dawn and
Oh,
War, is that they are so serious and dark. And like War for the Planet of the Apes, it's in the title. It is a war movie. There are concentration camps. Like there is horrible, horrible, horrible things happening here. And I just love that it takes it there because you start watching these movies and you're like, oh, these are a bunch of damn dirty apes. Oh, no, they're just characters in some of the most beautiful CGI motion capture you've ever seen.
No, seriously, I rewatched the first two this weekend, and like I think that's probably the best trilogy we've gotten in quite some time.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of the same way. Like I've never seen any of the other movies, but I watched The Simpsons constantly growing up, and I don't know. You get that thing where I'm like, have I seen that? I'm like, no, I actually haven't. I just have seen all the pieces of it. I've seen there's a scene in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back that's like a Planet of the Apes montage, and I feel like I'm like I remember a part where
No, everybody should watch the original. It's just gorgeous sci-fi.
Yeah.
And
I was
stands out.
I had a friend who he was kind of like you in a lot of ways. Like he watched all the TV, and I was like, when do you do that? And he was like an AP student in high school, and I'm like, when do you find time for this? He's like, I just TiVo a lot of stuff. I'm like, do you sleep? He's like, not as much
Friend
as you
Andrew
think.
Goldfarb.
Yeah.
Andrew Goldfarb also does that, but one time he gave me a synopsis of every single of the Planet of the Apes movies, and he kept like adding them. He's like, and then there's Return to the Revenge of the Death of the Planet of the Apes, where they're all senators. I'm like, you're kidding. He's like,
That's
nope.
that's actually beneath the return of the future of the Planet of the Apes.
Exactly. Yeah, but I like the fact
Which
that
could be a real title.
you're like, yeah, that one. They're mostly there's a human baby, and they're trying to figure out what to do with it. I'm like, no, you're totally messing with me. No, that's an actual
Our
thing.
senior editor, Scott Calora, is like that. He has like an encyclopedic knowledge that you can read all on IGN because he's written so many pieces about Planet of the Apes tied to war and like explaining all like the connections that there's. I don't know. It's really funny.
Well,
but
marathoning those movies is a good idea for the meantime because you won't be playing that video game ever because there literally isn't a screenshot or even a developer.
Yeah,
doing
that's
that.
pretty weird. I like to think that Andy Serkis is just like, we did a bunch of mocap of me in the monkey
just
suit.
turn
Just
it into a game.
The game.
game?
Yeah.
Please?
It could be a game or a show or a Happy Meal toy.
I want to be an ape
Enjoy.
some more. In the meantime, go play, what was it, Enslaved? Where you played the monkey in that?
Odyssey to the West. Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
Really nothing like it.
It's Andy Serkis, and he
Well, we're
plays an
giving
ape
two
man.
options. You can binge all the old movies or do this.
Perfect, close enough.
Speaking of weird old crap from the 70s, Carlos L. Arredondo says, what do you guys think of the new Atari? which we got this. There's an Atari. What's it called? Like the Atari box or something. It's Atari announced that they're making a new little sort of classic console, sort of akin to an
like
NES
an
Mini.
NES classic.
But
well, it's got modern specs.
Right.
So that's the really interesting thing. So they're basically pitching it that it can play modern games. Now, modern specs could mean it has the guts of an iPhone 6. It could mean it has the guts of a Switch or a PlayStation 6. No one knows.
But what do you do with an Atari game when you have modern specs? Is the question.
I think the same thing you do with a virtual console game when you have something like Breath of the Wild, or a PlayStation 1 game when you have Metal Gear Solid 5. It sits there and you don't play it.
Yeah, it's going to be the most stunning Pong you've ever seen.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know who this is for exactly.
I want like the realistic, like updated Pong where it's like the paddles or like.
I would love that. They're just blood. It's just,
yeah, but
It's actually
like,
a David Lynch horror film.
yeah, I don't think anybody in PlayStation is shaking their boots over this thing. This is going to be a sort of like very small group of people will want to get this thing.
Seems like kind of a hipster Ouya. Like it's
I mean, that said, it's like a pretty gorgeous looking console design. Like I think like in terms of modernizing that sort of weird old wavy wooden box that they used to put out, they called an Atari. I never had one growing up that was like just before me. It's a cool new design, but I don't know who that's for. Everything else.
It's interesting. We were talking about it a little bit on GameScoop because I've just infected all of your podcasts since I'm up here pre-Comic-Con this week.
There we go.
And it does feel like maybe it's just capitalizing on the success of the NES Classic and the soon-to-be SNES Classic that I keep updating the pre-order link. And I'm like, please let me pre-order this, please.
you can buy a book about it.
Yeah.
You just can't buy the actual thing.
Perfect. But I think it's for the parents who grew up with Atari who want to educate their kids on retro games, but like how many working Ataris are there left that are not infinitely expensive?
Also, those kids are now like, Mom, I'm 30. I got a PS4. It's
but
cool.
what like Sam and Justin and Damon were talking about is like beyond Pong, how many Atari games are there actually out there that you want to play in an Atari box?
And that's the thing, right?
There's
that a
so
lot
many
of people
NES
forget.
games,
Yeah.
so many SNES.
The NES, SNES, the PlayStation 1, those libraries have aged significantly better than the Ataris. And I've tried, and we've gotten retro consoles sent to us here at the office that are sort of like the NES Mini, but with Atari games. The control mechanisms on a lot of those are incredibly obtuse. They vary from sort of model to model. There used to be overlays and like weird dip switches and all this other nonsense. They just haven't aged very well.
Yeah.
Like, I think that there have been a lot of really bad Indiana Jones games, but the one for the Atari is, it's basically a rectangle with a top hat getting hit by like circles.
I just want them to
just
release
like the films.
The ET game on this in the same way that they're doing Star Fox 2 for the SNES. Like everyone who's like learned about the myth of this ET game through like finding the dump site or whatever. Like, here's your chance to play it.
I know. Well, I mean, I think there's like the sort of unironic, like, I'm playing the worst game ever.
I think realistically, this thing probably has some like Android guts or like a Raspberry Pi type thing inside it, and people are probably going to mod it within 24 hours, and then they're like, hey, it's a really pretty little emulator box that you can run stuff out of. Stephen Cothran has a good question, though. He says, do you ever see third-party consoles, i.e. not PlayStation, Microsoft, or Nintendo, ever gaining ground in modern gaming times with the announcement of the Atari blah, blah, blah? Wondering if there's space in the market for more than 3 main home consoles. What do you guys think?
I don't know about main home consoles.
Yeah.
You run into 2 major issues. One, you either need to have every significant third-party game, or you need to have the most stellar first-party lineup in the world. And without like significant development costs being thrown at it, you can't have the best first-party lineup, right? Look at like Nintendo; they've lived very strong for a very long time on having a plethora of internal studios that handle their stuff. Sony in the last decade or so have said like, we can do that too, and they've got this incredible family of studios making games for them. But when they're not, or when something gets delayed, they can go like Call of Duty, Battlefront, GTA, bring your exclusive stuff over to us. So you need one or the other of those things. The third thing that people have been trying to do the last few years is basically say, how do we get the success of mobile games on the TV? And no one's been able to actually nail that. I think the Switch is coming closest. It's getting a few mobile ports here and there. But most people play iPhone games on their phone, and then it's very hard to get them to play Angry Birds on a TV or anything like that.
Yeah, to me, it's like, what could one of these more niche consoles bring that all the mainstream ones aren't. You know, you have everything from playing on your phone to now, you know, VR, I think, is still trying to find its foothold in the mainstream audience, and then you have a PC or you have your PlayStation or your Xbox, whatever. And what else can you bring to the table, or Nintendo, obviously? What else can you bring to the table that's not already being done somewhere else to make it so everyone will want to own this?
I think you need like another Nintendo Wii situation, right? Where they come out the gate swinging with something that's so weird and so different and feels so new. It feels to everybody, right? Like you have to go. And Nintendo talked about that like blue ocean strategy, which I think Sony tried to get on for a little while. But you have to either make every hardcore gamer in the world go, this is another thing I need, or you have to swing for some area that no one's ever explored before and go like, oh, these people didn't even know they liked video games and now they do. But I really think that's what the iPhone's for, right? Or Android.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think it's nearly impossible to break in at this point. With the landscape as it is, and especially with things moving toward a lot of digital like sales, to say, here's our new console, I agree with you. It would have to be something that's like a Wii, but also what company is going to be willing to put in the investment to make something like that doesn't already manufacture hardware, have like R&D working on that sort of stuff, and also would need to, if say it was a third party like EA or Activision, will Activision, if it's EA, want to be on that console?
So that's a really good point, because like there was a couple years ago, there was that rumor that EA was making a box, right?
Yeah.
And they were going to exclusively port all their games to it. But that's them saying, we don't want to sell on the combined market share of 40 million plus 30 million plus 10 or 15 million plus PC plus iPhone, and we're going to funnel everything into this one bet. And if it tanks, our entire company goes under. And they're like, we have golf, tennis, baseball, basketball, football, space, whatever they want to throw at it. Star Wars, everything you have, which is admittedly like a pretty cool lineup, albeit like a little all over the place. But if you took all those things, you funneled them into one box, you'd still have to convince everybody in the world that they needed those. And that would be, I mean, they're known for monopolizing things, so who could do it but them? But still, I think it would be a massive miscalculation.
It's just such a huge gamble.
Yeah. It's so interesting because, sorry, I know that I'm derailing this a little bit.
It's
because
a podcast. That's what we do here. It's fine.
I translate it to TV, right? Because there were like the main 4 networks, and now we see everything spread so thin across streaming, and like everyone has a TV channel now. That like, how do you get your show to pop? And so many people wanted to cut the cord, but now it's almost more expensive to have every streaming service that you're subscribing to, because everyone has a streaming service.
And it's so split up too. Like if you say something like, I want to watch Better Call Saul. Cool. The first 2 seasons are on Netflix in America. The 3rd season's on Netflix in Canada. Otherwise, you have to watch them as they air on AMC week to week. But the second that ends, the 3rd season gets moved to Netflix, but then also that licensing deal might expire and they disappear. And you're like,
that's only in America.
That's only in America. And that's like, if you're like, I live in South America. So, you're screwed.
And I think that TV is going to like sort of hit a tipping point with it. And I think, you know, games might get there eventually.
They already are. If you look at like pre-order bonuses and stuff like that, you look at a game like Ubisoft launches a game.
Look at Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah. Right.
But think about how spread thin you could be like across all these consoles if there keep being so many different types of consoles. Like, it's too expensive.
And not just consoles, but marketplaces too, because you have Steam and you have Origin and you have something like Jump, which is coming in, which Chloe Rad wrote about, which is essentially they're trying to build themselves as the Netflix for games, for indie games. And it's a totally different model, but it's also going for a very different audience than say AAA major budget titles.
What I was going to say is I think that the only way that we get another box in the ring is that if somebody cracks that, how do you get the PC into the living room thing without, like, how do you attract people who want to play PC games? I don't know if it's a Steam box or if it's some kind of open source thing, or if this is even maybe this is the direction Xbox goes. They're already kind of double dipping with like games for Windows, but there are so many games out there that people get really excited about. Like, how do you get that into something that you can just buy over the counter? Because if you want to get into PC gaming, you have to build something, or you buy a gaming rig, but something that costs a comparable amount, which can do all the stuff that.
Which is why I think PlayStation keeps crushing it, because they figured out that perfect spot where it's like, you want indie games? We have some of those. Do you want next-gen graphics? We have those. Do you want ease of use? We have that. You can go to a store and buy a disc, or you can download directly from us. Do you want to go high-end? Yeah, well, here's a PS4 Pro. You know, it looks great in 4K. Oh, do you want to do experimental weird stuff? Here's VR. Do you want a handheld? Here's a Vita. Like, they've got every base covered, aside from like the, you know, kind of hacky mobile game market, but they're not really going for it, you know?
It's a good thing that you have all those thoughts because you're on a PlayStation podcast.
I know.
Doesn't
I'm
hurt.
trying. I'm trying.
Well, and I mean, you also have just the consideration of mobile and how big that is also in the and people have tried to adapt it, and whether you see something like Ouya, they tried and that didn't work out.
Well, we've heard for years that the mobile audience is the kind of audience that plays a game for a while on your phone, and everyone's always like, we're going to turn them into console gamers. And it's like, yeah, but we haven't actually seen the stats on whether or not that conversion significantly happens. So I think Sony goes, oh, well, console gamers are here already. We'll take care of them. And then people on iOS, they want it, and Android, they're like, stay here and keep playing games. So
yeah, because you play your mobile game when you're like bored on your.
When you can't be on your PlayStation.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And that's, I think, why you're saying, like, or someone was saying that the Switch is sort of the best thing that can combine those because it's both.
The good thing is that there are people all over the world making sure that no matter where we are, we can play video games.
Yeah.
That rules.
No, it's good stuff. I think when you're looking at this, what's curious is that you got Sony, which has been making consumer electronics since the 1950s. You've got Nintendo, which has been making toys and games since the Meiji era, and you've got Microsoft, which is making software since the 80s. And these are all like very different backgrounds that kind of converge on gaming. And I don't know what the fourth thing would be. Like if there's a company that does kind of an X factor that's sort of out beyond that maybe has a different insight or a different angle. So who knows? Maybe it's Oculus and they've got Facebook money behind them, and who knows? Anyway, moving on. Clint Gilmore says, if you could make a game based on an existing TV movie franchise, what would it be? Jonathan, go.
Clint has the perfect name for this: a Gilmore Girls game.
Ooh.
There's actually
like a Telltale Gilmore Girls game.
Well, someone actually, I was on the Kind of Funny Games cast a little bit a while back to talk about Kingdom Hearts, and someone asked me to pitch a Gilmore Girls game, and they were like, "Oh, you must have been thinking about this for a while." Totally thought it up on the spot, but I would either do a dating game where essentially it's you have to pick between all the boys
but
of
would
Stars
you
Hollow.
play as Rory or Lorelai?
Both.
Ooh, you got the option.
Oh, both,
yeah, it's
like
a different
day
game.
night,
Yeah. It's a second campaign.
Yeah, okay.
Or
New
you
game
do,
plus is Lorelai.
or you do one.
There's just a
Sorry
tower defense game where you've got to resist Luke's advances. He's so sweet.
The other option, which vaguely ties into a Harry Potter idea that I have, is that you create an MMO that is you could do it on mobile, of a Harry Potter MMO where you create a student Hogwarts and you basically level them up through their 7 years. And you take different classes, which are different mini games, and you basically can interact with other friends like on chat in your house or things like that. I think you could do something in that space. I would love a AAA Harry Potter game, don't get me wrong, but that doesn't seem to happen anytime soon.
Yeah.
I also think you could do the same for Gilmore Girls. You can make a lot of Gilmore Girls games.
Would a Harry Potter game work where you're just going to school there? Because obviously it's magical and everything, but so much of what makes that exciting is that there's an evil wizard trying to kill that one boy.
Sure, I think you can make it a Persona type game though, where it's all about the relationships and your social bonds.
Yeah, because that's what like the early books really had. That you sort of like. I remember being really pissed after Half-Blood Prince or something came out, and I was like, yeah, but who won the Hogwarts Cup?
Yeah.
Like, why? I don't care about like. Okay, Voldemort is important, but. Who won the Hogwarts Cup?
Yeah, the House Cup became like Whose Line rules. It's
Yeah.
like the points don't matter anyway. Who cares?
Anyway, sorry.
Wizard Hitler's trying to kill you.
I didn't put nearly enough thought into this question beforehand, but I came up with one: John Wick arcade game in the style of like Street Fighter.
Oh, like a beat 'em up, but with guns?
Yeah, but just like John Wick, like on like
Streets of Rage, you mean?
Oh,
Yeah,
like an arcade, like in an arcade, like
Oh,
but
that'd be
you're
super
just John
fun.
Wick.
I'd be down with that because I feel
is how
like
we
we don't get
One to
nearly
one.
enough beat 'em up games, so that'd be cool.
That is a movie tie-in I could see happening. They did make a John Wick VR game, but I mean that kind of we do see that where it's like, oh hey, here's a game coming out, or here's a promotional 16-bit game.
Yeah.
We saw that with like Dead Island. They were
Scott
like,
Pilgrim had that beat 'em up game,
which was awesome. That was way forward
really
that did
fun.
that.
Yeah.
Brian, what about you?
I'd really like a Gambit VR game that's kind of like Super Hot, but where you're like charging things in your environment and grabbing them and killing people with them. Yeah, like it would be like a very stupid card throwing game, but it'd be awesome to just sort of like attack people with like your weird staff and your glowing purple hands.
Huh. I was just thinking, I could totally go for Planet of the Apes, like just a game like Shadow of Mordor, where it's kind of like, hey, maybe this is a small snippet of what makes those movies great, but like maybe this is rival ape ape clans or whatever. You get to pick what kind of monkey you are.
Mordor would be an awesome model too, because like just like running up buildings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Totally.
It would be like Mordor, but all of the other creatures could climb buildings too. Whereas when you climb a building in that game, everyone's like, "Oh God,
no,
God, you get up there."
Crikey!
He's after our bees. All right, Harry Lazida says, "What game do you wish had a horse?" Also, hi Terry.
Hi.
Well, horses. Which game needs a horse?
This is a Max and Brian discussion.
Which game doesn't need a horse is the question I would
My
ask
life
you.
is my answer. Just
That's-
like I wish I had a
life is not
horse
a
that I
game.
could summon by like pressing triangle button.
Do you mean like
in my real life?
the board game life?
No, I mean
that'd be
like
weird if
right
one family
now.
got a
Like,
car.
imagine
Instead of a
if I
car,
could just
you get
like
a horse.
press like a button.
I have
or,
a great new app
like,
for you. It's like Uber, but it's for horses. It's called Hoover.
I feel like
You can only one rider at a time, unless you get a buggy, which costs extra. That's a Hoover XL. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't have a good funny follow up to that. That's perfect.
No, that's it.
That's it.
That's
I don't know.
we nailed
I
it.
think
That's
that-
our show.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Forza, just horse DLC.
Forza.
Forza.
Horse rising, horse riding. I'm sorry. All right. Final question. Chris Langan says, "What are you all looking forward to the most at Comic-Con?" Comic-Con is happening.
Over.
Don't say that. You've got so much to do.
Tune in for all of our
Cool
Comic-Con
stuff, and I'm
coverage.
so tired.
We have so much coming up. This is
Yeah.
going to be huge. I believe, knock wood, there's no wood in here. This is studio. I'm going to be interviewing Jordan Vogt Roberts, who's
awesome.
tentatively attached to the Metal Gear movie, directed Kong Skull Island. Seems like a really cool guy. Terry, what about you?
I'm going to be chained to the balcony where I'm going to be interviewing a lot of people coming through for our live stream, which I'm really excited about for all that, Comic-Con is a crazy big event. It's the biggest event in the entertainment space. And it is my favorite of the year.
Sure.
This year we're doing it like bigger than ever before. I'm so excited about our Twitter partnership where like we're going to be like at E3, we're going to be featured on that front page module. I'm just so excited about the MCU panel. It's going to be all Infinity War. Like at D23 they had Infinity War, but I really think that beyond that, like it's a 90-minute panel. I think they're going to have Infinity War, Thor, Black Panther, and like every other movie maybe plus. Like I think that they're going to go all in on that. I hope we see something from Ant-Man and the Wasp. I hope that we see something from what am I blanking on? Captain Marvel. I hope we see Captain Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like imagine if Brie Larson walked out on stage in the suit.
That would be pretty
Gonna
cool.
be in Hall H. Don't do that to me.
Also, this is the first Comic-Con since this show has started going where Game of Thrones has actually been on the air while Comic-Con is happening. So like the premiere just happened and this is going to be right before season 2. So there actually could be news to come out of Comic-Con. They actually could show something that is relevant to our interests. That's not just like
See, you don't want it to be over. You want it to start.
I know. I want it to be over and just be like, like the glow. That was such a great Comic-Con, but like not have to hustle. Also, I have a really cool panel.
Yeah, we're
getting there.
Hold on. Brian, what about you? What are you excited about?
Terry's panel. Let's hear about it.
All right. Okay. It's called IGN's Game Changers. Yeah. Can't talk words. Thursday, July 20th, IGN's Game Changers. It is in room 7AB. Nerds win. What's next? Terry Schwartz, you are moderating it. Who's on it? What is it?
So Clifford Blazinski.
The B. Blazinski
is going to be on it, which I'm really excited about. Gail Ann Hurd is going to be on there talking about like her experience in film and also on television, obviously with The Walking Dead. One of my favorite people, Carlton Cuse, is going to be on there. You know him of Lost and Bates Motel. And then also Jeff Johns agreed to be on it to talk about not only comics but also the DCEU. So it's sort of like the craziest all-star dream lineup. That
it is awesome.
Yeah, that's nuts.
It's the future of just nerd media, basically.
Initially, Hideo Kojima was going to be on it, which also is like bananas. But unfortunately, he had to drop out of Comic-Con this year. So maybe next year, if this is a hit and it goes on. But it's funny because I just want to get these people together to talk about their industries and like how they've changed. And I think, what's interesting about having these people together is that nerd culture has become pop culture, and like how have the things like VR and cinematic universes changed the industry as we know it, and where is it going next? And I think all these people can speak across all those mediums. So I just can't wait to see it.
That'll be
awesome.
huge. That is, again, that's Thursday night from 5 to 6 p.m. in room 7AB. So go see that.
I will say we can't live stream that panel, but there will be clip outs on our live show, and we are going to be able to run after, I think so starting Friday, we'll be able to put the full panel up online.
Okay.
Awesome.
Cool.
Sweet.
And there's a bunch of other stuff. Joshua Weale's doing one. Lana's doing one. There's a bunch of posts about that up on IGN.com. Please watch our Comic-Con stuff. It's going to be huge. It's going to be great. We're going to be there running around very crazy and seeing lots of cool stuff. You can find us all on Twitter. I'm Max Scoville. You're
at Terry_Schwartz.
Terry_Schwartz. Agent Bizzle over here. And then, of course, J.M. Dornbush.
Yep.
The law offices thereof. And that's our show for you. Head on over to facebook.com/group/podcastbeyond. And of course, subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/IGNBeyond. We love you very much. Have a wonderful week. The end.
Goodbye.